Thanks for first of all, for all of you come all the way. I think it's been a long hike, but we just thought it'd be. I think last time after the last meetup, Saurabh kind of asked us if we would be able to share our journey, but thought okay, good opportunity for us also to let people know what we're up to. Essentially, Accio. We started Accio 3 years back, and right now we are at a stage where we are just at that inflection point of trying to really go into the market and start scaling our deployment. So we'll first start off with setting the context initially, which is telling you where we're coming from. So move to the next. So in terms of Accio, we started actually, both my co-founder Tuhin and I, we started not Accio, we started our company straight out of university, which was in 2019. So both of us graduated from VIT Vellore, and we did our BTech in mechanical engineering, and we were essentially a dorm room startup, and discussing a lot of ideas, pondering over what to start off with. But initially, our idea was to build a text-to-speech and braille device for visually impaired people, and that is what we got some grants for from the government in 2019, and we started building that off. And yeah, that was our first office in the incubator back in college. And of course, the pandemic happened, and because of the pandemic, we really had to kind of focus on what is something that could scale, because that was a point where, I mean, the whole world was in a limbo, but we were trying to figure out what we do with our business, because we were really passionate about the problem. We knew that the problem is deep. A lot of visually impaired people don't have access to content like we do. So we were building a tablet essentially for them. And but yeah, because that's not necessarily a sector that attracts a lot of capital, so as to say. And as people who just graduated, we really didn't have the money to maybe put in our own resources to build that product out. So that's when we decided we had to go back to something that is our comfort zone. So majority of our team at that point, including me, we had spent a lot of time in robotics while at university. So we thought we'll just translate those skills into trying to build a business off. So we were offering a lot of services to clients abroad as well and in India to just design robots, design the software and all of that through this whole phase to keep cash flow going. And that's when in 2020 we decided, we want to focus on robotics as a single use case, and we thought let's pick the lowest hanging fruit there. And the lowest hanging fruit was mobile robotics, because we thought, okay, the manipulator space is pretty crowded with a lot of legacy players and all of that. So that is when we thought, let us just start off with maybe building a simple autonomous mobile robot that can move from point A to point B. And that's when we got like a really good, we were fortunate enough to come to land a really good client who was able to support us through that initial phase of building that prototype out for them, and then really take it to fruition from there. So that's why one of the main themes of this whole presentation is also about how lucky we've been over the whole span of this journey, and how that has played a major factor in what we're doing. So so initially this was our product, right? So it was just a simple small 30 by 30 mobile robot that could move autonomously, and we had built a fleet management algorithm around it, which would help it make it a multi-robot system essentially. And eventually over the last 3 years, we'll probably go to the videos. So over the last 3 years, the product is kind of evolved from that. So this was the first system where we have these group of 6 robots that are able to 5 robots in this video, so that are able to essentially operate together and perform, and they're doing it completely using SLAM and their own navigation, right? So, and they're all communicating to a common server, the usual how a fleet manager works in most mobile robotics use cases. So we started off building this, and we kind of finished off this whole use case using our base platform. So that was when we thought, the initial idea for us was that probably what every AMR company at this point looks to do majorly is you have a platform, you build solutions on top of it, right? And that's essentially what we were doing as well at that point. And go next slide. And so then that was one thing that we built till 2021, and then we also had go forward. So we also had these bigger AMR versions that could carry like bigger payloads, which we tried to deploy in industrial use cases. So we were primarily targeting manufacturing at that particular point. So again, the solution was, you have a platform. If the customer wants to use it as a line follower and make it cost efficient, then you do that. If the customer wants to use a completely autonomous mobile robot, then we had the stack for that. And we were running a lot of pilots with different customers to see where the robot actually fits, because we knew that the space is pretty crowded. Like there are so many players already building out. I think we had back in 2021 we had a competitors list of easily about 220 if I'm not wrong, and that is pretty huge. But we knew that in terms of our own journey, we knew that it doesn't really matter, because considering our resources, experience, and all the cards we had in our hand, we didn't necessarily see, if we wanted to stay in robotics, we didn't necessarily see another way out at that particular point, right? We'll go to the next slide. So that eventually, yeah. So that is when over the last 2 years we've been trying to focus more on how what is it that we can productize. So we started doing a few deployments, getting paid customers to understand where the using the same technology that we have, where we'll actually be able to gain traction. So this is one such deployment that we have here in Bangalore, where we're doing order picking again, right? So I'll come to our current use case that we're solving after giving you guys a brief context on what products we have. Next slide. Yeah, so this is the current flagship product that we're building, which is basically a mobile ASRS. What we're trying to do here is offer our customers the benefit of one, throughput, space utilization, and also how can you make the whole system scalable in case if if a customer wants to increase their warehouse space, right? So this is again one space where I'll go through the journey of how we landed on this. But this is our current flagship product, which we are not really out there. We are looking to officially launch this at Logimat. We're building the next versions of it over the next 3 months, and we'll be launching it properly at Logimat in February. So that's what we're geared up for. And yeah, what this does is we had like, yeah. So essentially, the main, I'll just go over that again because of music. But the main use cases for us was, of course, order picking was what we're targeting, and depending on, and in order picking, we're trying to offer value proposition in terms of how much space we can save, what's the throughput we can offer, how we can standardize the warehouses for our customers, and how we can give them the flexibility of being able to scale. So if you look at standard ASRS systems, it's not easy to replicate and scale them. And if you look at any kind of fixed automation, if you're looking at conveyor and all of that, it's not, you can't modularize it and really use the, so if our customer wants to increase storage from like 10,000 to 40,000, we really don't need to change the whole layout. We just have to add more racks, provided they have the existing land area, and add a few 10 robots to be able to go through this process. So actually this whole journey in terms of our product and our deployment cycle, our fundraise cycle, all of this, what has essentially taught us is we understood the importance of focus. We understood that, yeah, we were, as a company, as a young company, we were trying to do a lot, and we were essentially just not really heading anywhere in terms of the scale that we wanted to see, or the scale that any startup, like, so I think the role of a startup is to try to solve complicated problems. If we are going to solve another problem that is already there, then it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to raise a lot of venture money to do that, or it doesn't really make a lot. I mean, at that point you become a more conventional business, where that's also like a perfectly amazing route which gives you a lot of pros. But I think as a startup, when we try to solve those problems, when we try to gain that leverage to really scale, we need to focus, because one experience that we had, for context for people listening, is we had the same customer where we had deployed robots in 5 of their facilities, which was back in 2021, and each of those facilities had different application layers that we had to build on top of it, just because, even though it was in the same manufacturing field, just because of how their warehouse operated. Now this is not something that's going to be easily possible for a team of our size to do time and again, and we were not at a scale where we could maybe work with a bunch of system integrators to pull this off, or even, I mean, as a company you can't even say no to the client, so you're essentially trying to do that, and you kind of dig your own grave at that point. So all of this kind of helped us understand that we really wanted to focus on a use case, and we tried to gather all our experiences at that point. Back in 2021, we gathered all our mentors, our team members, and all of us. We were thinking, what is that point that's going to really give us that value proposition? And that was order picking, because we already had the technology to run probably multiple robots together, which is something that a swarm system would need, a multi-robot system. We already had done that in the past. We knew how to make robots autonomous. We knew how to build the hardware. So we thought, what is going to offer that best value proposition? Simple first principle thinking for us was, we understood that order picking seemed to be, even though there are a lot of players, there are goods to person solutions, even there is a niche which we can identify, which is probably not as captured in the market. And I think it's a trade-off again, because robotics is a space where you need some kind of leverage. You need some kind of leverage that you want to gain in terms of capital, team, and time and all of that. So we were essentially trying to find a balance, and that's when we thought order picking would be that nice space for us. So the reason why we do that is 55% of every warehouse's cost is majorly in order picking, be it in terms of racking, be it in terms of the surface area that is taken for storing the goods and the labor. So all of that was one major reason. And they just in a 8-hour shift where you take breaks of 1.5 hours, like the pickers what they get, and about 4.8 hours is just spent on moving packages and storing and retrieving packages. So all of this, I think most of us must be aware because we are in the industry and we're doing this. But yeah, we'll move on. Now coming specifically to our fundraising journey, now that we have some context in terms of where Accio is coming from. So cumulatively till this point, we've raised 18.6 crore. We just did our pre-series A couple of months back, and now is the phase where we're starting off a lot of the deployments, and we're still, as a early stage company, we're still obviously constantly raising, but this is where we are at this point, and we're the main goal for us is to try to, like I said, launch our product in the next 3 months officially. Because one thing I think, we've not been a company that is probably very out there. Many people don't know a lot about what we are up to, because we ourselves are figuring out what we are up to. And I think now that we have some kind of clarity, we are heading to a phase where we really want to start our deployments in scale, right? We'll move on to the next slide. So one important thing that in retrospect, when you're thinking what were some things that went our way, some things that really went our way were, I think at every step of the way, the core management or the core leadership team that we had, not just let's say me and Tuhin, one of the core things that we had was we had to kind of keep balancing between long-term and short-term goals. So one of the first things that we did is that we were pretty self-aware in terms of what is our problems. Our major problem, I think, as a founding team was we didn't have the experience of deploying robots. We didn't have the experience of selling robots. We didn't have any of this. So we knew that one thing that I think both of us have is we know Accio Robotics well. We don't know, we're not the best at building robots, but we're not the best at selling robots. So what Accio Robotics essentially has is, we try to question things at first principle. But when you're questioning things at first principle, it is very difficult to maybe get caught into something like, say, if I say I want to build some amazing technology that does not exist at this point. Say I want to do the same thing with drones. Definitely my battery packs are not going to be able to not going to be capable of carrying this much load and doing my 8-hour shift. So trying to solve the battery problem, right? That is a very long-term goal. Example of a long-term goal which probably we should not try to target. And a short-term goal would be trying to just firefight. Let's say one phase that we were in when I told you about like the multiple deployments we were trying to do. Us just trying to do those deployments again and again and trying to keep firefighting because we would hit short-term revenue targets would have been like basically us digging our own grave, right? So finding a balance between this, and why this balance is important is kind of the second point, is to gain that leverage to achieve long-term goals. So I think as a robotics company, there are the odds are stacked against us in terms of we can't be 4 people in a room coding for 5 to 6 days and come up with a product that you can acquire 200,000 users for, right? That is just the physical limitation of the space itself. So you need leverage in terms of capital. You need leverage in terms of people. You want some of the best minds in the country and the world working with you. And that comes at a price. You need to buy time. Like building out the technology takes a lot of its own gestation phase, and all of us are probably going through that phase or have gone through that phase, right? And that is when the focus really helped us. So we kind of tried to map out how the industry was heading. We tried to understand what we literally had a huge flowchart where we were drawing out literally every successful company that is probably worth, valued at more than probably $200 million right now in the world in this space. And we're trying to understand what was their journey, be it in terms of fundraising, be it in terms of products, how the products changed. And in India, considering it's more nascent, we have definitely have a few of the major players we can look up to, right? So we tried to map that out, and we kind of got an idea that focus was one common trend that we identified with all of them. At some point in their journey, they've really had to focus, and trying to be everything for everyone was not really working out, which is what we were doing back in 2020, 2021. So that was one thing we had to understand. And as we dwell deeper into this journey, this is also some things that gave us more, I think, conviction. So at seed level, we had actually, after a few of our initial investors, once they had put in money, we had asked them what was the reason. Like probably 6 months down the line, we asked them, why did you pay? I think, yeah, they said main thing is, yeah, robotics as a space is growing, warehousing is growing. Like I think even at that time, by 2025, it was projected to be at 6.25 billion. I think we are way above the curve at this point. And the team was something that I think really added value to them at that point. I think at the round that we raised right now, it was more to do with product and execution. So we had some kind of traction, and we had some kind of revenue metrics to show that order picking as a use case is something that we as a company can crack. There are companies out there in the world that are already doing it. There is Locus, there is Fetch, there is Exotech, there is all of the bigger players already doing this. But that is where the leverage balance that I was talking about, which I'll talk again in the future, in the next slides, about how competition probably helped us. But the having clarity in terms of, okay, Accio as a company has the way we have split our product line is, yeah, we have assisted picking solutions, which is using our AMR. We have automated picking solution, which is our mobile ASR is the flagship product that we have. And then we have picking augmentation accessories, which is basically we have our put to light system, or we have the bins, how is the pick station going to be, right? So these are accessory products. And we have our main Accio OS, which kind of integrates all of this, which has our warehouse execution system, which has our order management, task allocation, and all of that, right? So now all of these, when we were able to really split as product and draw a roadmap and see that, okay, this is the only way that this whole solution makes sense for the market. Doing anything else, we've already really segmentized it quite a bit, and doing anything else doesn't really make sense because it doesn't add value to the customer. Previously, so it doesn't really add value to the customer, and that's when we really needed to have that clarity with our product. I felt like that was one important thing for this round. And execution is, yeah, the little bit of the revenue that we were able to get in, and the clients we were able to sign, and also potential contracts we had in the pipeline, right? I think those also added some kind of value to our current round. And I think, yeah, for growth state, our assumption is that revenue and scale is going to be the answer, and our North Star is that right now. We'll probably know in the next couple of years, but yeah, this is where we're at. Yeah, we'll go to the next stage. So I think, yeah, some questions that we were asked. So I'll tell you, for raising our last round, which was probably around, like I said, like we set out to raise a total of like $3 million. We've closed. So what we did was, just because we wanted to really launch the product, what we did was we'd gotten already commits for around $2 million. We'd locked the round there, and we said we're closing our round at this particular point, and we'll add future investors as part of the same round, which we had an agreement with our investors to do. And so we really wanted to get started, right? And in this whole process, we had spoken to about 150 odd investors, I think, give or take. I'm not exactly sure. I would have to ask Tuin for the exact number, but I think we'd spoken to around these many people or had some kind of interactions, and majority questions were these lines, right? Like we had what the business model is going to be. I think basics. It was mostly, one thing I realized through this round as well, when we had to go through a lot of finding answers for a lot of these questions, was investors just found so much value in having answers for the basic questions. Like if you're talking about how will the business generate revenue, I think that when I actually looked at it, majority companies, like even if I look at, say when I talk to other of my entrepreneurial friends in the other space, and even robotic space, one thing was that an early stage company, when we set out at seed stage, we're like, okay, I'm going to sell the robot and I'm going to make money. But then when you talk to the customer, you understand this is not probably how the customer wants to pay for the robot, or this is not how the customer wants the ROI to take shape. Now, when you understand all that, then you have the brief phase where you really don't know how you're going to charge for the robots or make money for the robots and all of that. So understanding exactly like how will the business generate revenue, right? What are the potential ways? What are the backup plans for that if you're not able to generate revenue this way, right? Having just the basic things, like will your business survive? Then the target market, right? Clear understanding of the market you want to sell. So for us, it was very clear in terms of, yeah, we're doing order picking. But even there, okay, we're not saying we're going to do order picking for everyone in the world. We're like, we are doing order picking. We are primarily focusing on auto electronics, and we will be getting into pharma. We will probably be getting into cosmetics in the future. But right now, yeah, we are focusing on this, and then the other focus is geography, because geography also gives a lot of answers for our space, I guess, and I would say any B2B space for that matter, because the buying power or the spending willingness to spend for a customer in different geographies is different, right? So how the ROI makes sense for a customer abroad will be totally different from how the ROI makes sense for us here. So now having clarity that, okay, so we had a clear plan that India at this point is probably going to be our validation market, where we validate our execution plan, we validate our product, we know exactly how each robot gets deployed, because as a company that didn't probably have the experience of deploying hundreds of robots, it would be very foolish for us to assume that this is how it's going to be when we go abroad. So we wanted to basically, how do we be self-aware? Like, how do we know that this will fail and this will succeed, so that when we take the big steps of, say, going to a Europe or say going to a US, we are not like crashing and falling, right? So understanding our geographically understanding how things work. So I think having clarity on that really helped us, and even all of these questions actually in retrospect gave us a lot of clarity on what to focus on now. Like when the investors are asking us these questions and we are really toiling hard to find those answers, it gave us a lot of clarity that we probably didn't know we needed, because we were just behind survival. Like for any early stage company, we are wondering how do we get to payroll next month, and we're not really probably worried about 10 years down the lane. This is the kind of I want to like really disrupt defense is not what we are thinking about, right? So that is one thing that helped. And I think founders, they were obviously concerned about what our role was, and why this point was important was I think as a company we had shown that trend of what we lacked, we were filling those gaps. So we probably lacked experience, we were filling those gaps. We probably lacked, let's say, so both Tuhin and I, we have not sold hundreds of robots, we have not built hundreds of robots. We're not like, honestly, we had not put any robot in the market up till like probably a year back. So when that has not happened, on what basis am I going to go about saying that, yeah, I'm going to build out this product, I'm going to make it, every investor wants us to be a $1 billion business, and on what basis am I saying that I'm going to be a $1 billion business? So I think there was the trend of us filling those gaps along the way. And I think now we're continuing with that trend. So that I think really helped us. So how we went about having those answers, right? So for so one thing that we also noticed that for majority investors, everyone had like different driving forces. It was not that everyone, there were investors who were just driven by the fact that, okay, we already had a lead investor and they were ready to put in money. Then there were investors who were driven by the fact that, okay, the technology looks cool, there are very limited competitors, but the market is growing, and so okay, that is something that was validation enough. For some people, they just wanted to invest in a deep tech company. So I think different people had different angles. Some people really cared about the climate angle, right? So one thing that we helped is, I think one thing that really worked for us, I would say, is of majority of the people that we reached out to, we at least got responses from, I would say, about 70 to 80% of the investors in terms of at least let's have a chat, because otherwise they're probably getting, if you look at early stage robotics companies around the world, right, they're probably getting easily, and there are very limited investors who are focused on that, and general investors don't probably understand it to the depth of all of these investors. Now these focused investors are getting probably hundreds of emails on a weekly basis. Now how do you differentiate from them, right? That was one answer that we had to find. And then the more general investors, they are going to have go back. They're going to have a lot of questions around how the market operates, so that they can gain conviction. Maybe they have the capital, they have the thesis, and they want to look into, they haven't invested in mobile robotics, but they've invested in other kind of deep tech. So then how do you gain that access, give them that access, right? So one thing that we had was, for every question, I think 3 months into the fundraise, we had a list of questions, and we were like, how do you get confidence from the investors? Is you basically show them you have the answers even before they have that question, right? So we had like a series of reports that we had prepared, which was kind of sent along with our initial deck in most cases, which even if maybe they didn't open it and go through like a 20-page report, they at least know that, okay, these guys have thought about these things, right? These guys are not just coming to me with, okay, just like one robot that can climb and another robot that's just rolling on the floor, and they're thinking about it from a business angle. And it actually, honestly, it gave us also a lot of conviction about what we're building. So a simple question that we used to get asked is, how is your solution different from gray orange, which is very common. Like everyone in the world knows gray orange. No one is going to not compare our solution to gray orange. But yeah, they're a goods to person solution. The Butler is a goods to person solution that carries a 1-ton payload, that does specific things, that travels at specific speeds, and is for a specific application. So many investors, we realized, they also weren't probably looking at it from an angle that there can exist a world where Accio and Butler can exist together, because warehousing itself is so deep that there are warehouses that can specifically cater to the Butler, and there are warehouses that specifically need our solution. And it's not like if they exist we can't exist, and that's how wide the market is, and that's how niche the market is as well. So niche in terms of wide in terms of the market size, niche in terms of how the market how the specific warehouse needs a solution. So if you look at the whole logistics chain, you're talking about, okay, a Butler will work at a mother warehouse in the Amazon value chain, will probably work at maybe like a more Koramangala, HSR and Sarjapur specific warehouse, right? So every part of the value chain, automation has value, and we had to show that also to a lot of investors who are probably not well versed with the logistics space, and they're just exploring. But we really liked them as people that have already invested in deep tech, and we wanted them to back us. And so these were answers. The other thing was energy savings, right? Like how are we, like one serious potential with our tech is that with the completely automated system is we can have dark warehouses where you don't need any kind of human intervention. Lights out automation is a possibility. So if lights out automation is a possibility, what kind of numbers are we looking at in terms of savings? How does that change? So these were things that if we felt that an investor has like a climate thesis, then we're like, okay, this is something that it has to go along with, because why else will they want to open my pitch, right? And maybe they are really good investors to have on the cap table because of the way they look at problems, the way they look at long things, deep tech in the longer term. So these were the extra steps. And the next slide. So these were a few extra steps that we had to take. And then other simple exercises we used to do was, there were a series of reports that already exist out there. There's a Stick report, there is Gartner's report, there is every of the major companies has their own case studies and reports. Now again, understanding that, okay, we are not the guys that know the market well, like accepting that, yeah, we don't know the market well, we're not going to assume anything. We don't know exactly how big the technology is. We don't know globally where, what, when, how is it happening. We have not really done that for 10 years. So how do we learn from that are available? We used to summarize them. So me and Tuhin or anyone from our team who's working in the founder's office, or we summarize these reports, not just for ourselves. We also used to definitely send it out to the investors, but also the whole team used to have access to it, so they know what we are getting into, and they're not going blind into this whole thing that why. So I mean, it doesn't make sense for our team itself to be thinking that what is different from gray orange and us, right? It doesn't make sense. So I think giving them also that context really helped in terms of, I think, developing the transparency to maybe build out a lot of these things faster, and giving them that context and clarity. So one thing we've really relied on is external industry experience from credible sources. One more thing we have seen very commonly, I think, is at an early stage, I've seen at least, okay, I would say like pre-seed stage, when I'm talking to founders who are asking like, how do you get started and what do you do? We start off with a lot of assumptions. Why will a customer talk to me? I need to give ROI, only then it's going to matter. I need to be a company this big for like maybe a government agency to involve with me, right? So all of these things, I think, a lot of assumptions that we go with. And one thing I think we did right, at least up till this point, is ruthlessly eliminate those assumptions, because the world is like filled with them, especially so there are a lot of investors who saw, I'm sure you guys saw Squid, right? The other robot that also climbs in. So a lot of investors are like, yeah, Squid, I mean, they're seeing the stuff on LinkedIn. They're seeing a lot of these mobile robot solutions on LinkedIn. So they feel there is a bias in people's minds that there are a bunch of these things already happening in the world, and they're deployed across like hundreds of facilities, right? But that is not the truth, and showing them that, yeah, this is exactly how it is. Now, if you look at G2P, if you look at the G2P report analysis, Squid is not even mentioned there as a viable player, because they don't have enough deployments to maybe compete with an Exotech or like the bigger players like OPEX and all of them. So then giving them the context, yeah, there's cool technology that has a cool video, but now when you're talking about execution, where do we lie? Like where is the benchmark, right? So that I think a lot of first getting our own biases, getting rid of our own biases, and also I think giving people that are involved in us, all our stakeholders, be it our customers, be it our investors, and be it our team, it really mattered to give them this context, right? So yeah, go to the next slide. Now, I think other common problem, the next problem we faced was projections, and I think this is where being in a space where there is already competition helped, and there is already the bigger players helped. So one thing is clear. So the base context that we had set for all our customers, all our investors, was that we are not the only people here. We are not the ones that are. We are not saying that we are going to disrupt a market and tomorrow an Adverb or a Exotech or an auto store is not going to do what we are doing. We are not saying any of that. What we are saying is that we are here to build a long-term viable robotics business, and that requires certain leverage. We need capital, we need experience, we need a really kick-ass team that is able to deliver on this, because it's probably easy to put together a team that can build an autonomous mobile robot at this particular point because of the amount of experience and open source and building off of open source and all that. But being able to build a team that can question why that is done in a certain way and then change the way that happens is fairly more complicated, is what at least my naive understanding at this point is. And considering that, to gain this team, you need the capital leverage and you need the time leverage. So we set that baseline that this is where we are coming to you from. We are a really motivated team that is trying to solve a complicated problem which is beyond the scope of our capabilities at this particular point, which is basically trying to make a robot move on the floor and climb in the span of the next 8 to 10 months. And if we want to be able to do that, this is the amount of capital we're going to be needing. And beyond this, it's going to be growth, because our market size research was very clear. Market size research in terms of how big the market is. If you look at, as of today, if any of our competitors, one thing is, our competitors have, some of our competitors, one of our competitors, like if you look at Alert Innovation, was sold to Walmart just a year back for like $2 billion. Exotech is already worth $2.5 to $3 billion. And now that shows the scale. Below them, there is like a small layer where, there are companies that are probably one stage ahead of us, probably a couple of years ahead of us. And then there is like not many players in India, Asia Pacific, Australia. So we set the context that market is clear. This is where the market is. As of the data that we have, and we had credible sources for that, our competitors that are way more mature than us have deployments in average of $10 million at this point. This has been quoted by them. So if they're having an average deployment of $10 million, which is like 35 robot, fleet of 35 robots, storage of 30,000 bins and all of that, what we can achieve in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years with a stable product, with the right execution and capital, is definitely fairly disproportionate. And our competitor right now is probably worth $2-3 billion with just about 80 to 90 deployments. It's not like they're deployed across all the warehouses in the Europe or in US. So that way there was a clear indicator in terms of, the limiting factor of our industry, which is the warehouse robotic spaces. There is a balance of good product and good service. Like, you are also being partly a services business, because every customer might have that small tweak that you have to do in terms of your layout. Every customer might have that small UI that they want to integrate, which is basically B2B. Like, even if you go buy a software right now, SaaS platform, they do tend to customize things for you, right? So showing them that how we are going to have that R&D progress in a way where us doing deployments in 1.5 months, how are we planning to get it down to 10 to 12 days, or how do we get it down to a week, right? Which is like probably extreme cases where we'll maybe disrupt the market at that point, but how do we really do this, right? So we had a decent pipeline on how we wanted to achieve that. What are the technology modes that are going to come into the robot to improve the deployment cycle over the next 1.5 years? So that is where what we had a lot of our competitors not just competitors, people in the order picking space, which can be like, if you look at G2B solutions, you look at, you can take Locus, Fetch, the usual suspects, Exotech, AutoStore. They had clear case studies. There were reports and articles because of them. AutoStore is a publicly traded company. You had enough data of them available online, right? So we had enough statistics, and we had enough to show that our solution and approach is validated. Because one trend we noticed was, we had this hypothesis 1 year back that we formed, that we are going to initially start off with 2 deployments, 3 robot deployments, not go to a fleet of 30 robots directly, because we want to understand our product. So we saw a very similar trend with them in terms of timeline. Like, if you look at how AutoStore started in 2002, 2003, their first few case studies from 2002 are two robots, just two robots with having like 100 stories, which okay, validates that our approach is kind of on the same track and we're not probably missing something huge, right? But what that also gave us is we had our own metrics in terms of how much our robots cost, how much our bins cost, how much our solution is going to cost, and we had just basically extrapolated that in terms of giving them a full list of these are the case studies that you have, and this is how our projections are. In the next 1 year, we want to have a fleet of a total of 30 robots out on the floor. Now, if we want to have those 30 robots, this is the business I'm expecting from these 30 robots. Now, if I look at how my competitor has grown beyond that point, be it in terms of fundraising and be it in terms of number of deployments, it was giving us a very clear idea that now even if you see, right, so there is a aspect of our solution which is not just the robots, the racking and the totes and the storage itself. So if you see, all the initial deployments have like 79% revenue from racking, and then there is a significant change to how that becomes 52% and then drops after that, because the number of robots increase to a level where you want to achieve a lot more throughputs, right? So this is, yeah, so we kind of extrapolated it based on the case studies that we already had, and we attached our costing to it. So we took those case studies and we attached our costing because we had our costing and we knew the number of storage locations, we knew the height, we knew the surface area. So so that gave us an idea that our projections are not completely at a scale where, because I mean, as of right now, barring this, I still don't have a way of how I'm going to project it. Yeah, we have a series of clients in the pipeline right now whom we can say that, yeah, we'll have to probably deploy these. But at that point, to go and say that I'm going to deploy 100 robots in the next 2 years, I don't think we had any kind of basis for that. So we were just looking for that basis. So this seemed like a viable option to be able to do that. And this I think really helped us in terms of creating our own whole MIS, how the financials are going to work. This is how much revenue we're expecting from these robots. We are investing certain X amount from our fundraise into R&D, which is going to help our product get from X to 0.5X in cost. So because of that, our numbers are going to go up even more higher. So profits are going to go higher. So we were able to kind of piece all of these things together, which gave us some leverage. And what it did is, I think even now when we ask our investors, they probably know that, yeah, all of this is not probably going to really materialize 100% 1:1, but they know that we've at least thought about it, and we are constantly conducive, or we are thinking of the fact that something like this is needed, and there's a basis. There's no assumption here. It is all a logical basis of which some output has come, right? So yeah, we'll go to the slide. So I think again coming to the same concept, right? Why I said luck. So I mean, this is a bit of boring. I don't know, just a bit of boring philosophy as well from my side. Is that I'm going through a lot of these books in terms of how you maximize luck and how you try to, because my baseline is that I think I've been very lucky throughout this whole journey, or in life, with life in general. So how maximizing luck is one interesting thing that I read was, yeah, you're going to keep doing what you're passionate about, and you're going to, like, the other axis, you tell people proportionally accordingly, so that you're just increasing your chances of being lucky. So one thing I think what we had done was that we had identified what our passion was, which is, okay, we wanted to build robots. There are a group of us trying to build robots. When we build robots, we then identified that, okay, now these robots, if we really want to build the cool stuff, let's say tomorrow we want to crack the problem of visual slam, which is probably going to take another couple of years or 3 years and lots of money into R&D, data collection and all to crack, we're going to need capital and we're going to need leverage. So how do you gain that leverage? You need some industry to start off with, right? So double clicking on that industry and being like, yeah, this is where I'm going, because what it immediately does is, again, this analogy I was giving someone in the team as well on how to approach robot design. But if you're talking about chess, right, like there is like 20 moves that you can start off with. But now when chess players, they have a lot of these Sicilian defense and all of these random openings that you can play. It kind of, then you base it out of the opponent. Okay, the opponent is good at this and I'm good at that, so I play this move first. So you reduce your risk, like you basically de-risk a lot of yourself. So now double clicking on that industry was kind of this for us, like making that first move, so that in this industry, how do you maximize your product and your offerings, right? One thing. Then yeah, building the right balance between technology moat and resource allocation. So I think one very huge confusion that we also used to have is, if we go to a deep tech investor, I think that's a tricky thing about robotics, or at least the space that we are in. If you look at a typical deep tech investor, you're talking about investing in rockets is probably easier than investing in robots, because there is a clear technology moat that is being developed. There is a clear, it might be a long-term game. It will fit their thesis. But if you're say solving the energy problem, if you're solving the big, if you're like really trying to build fuel cells and all of that, there is a clear that if the team is good, the team is experienced, then it's easier for them to put money in them than us, because we still have the similar problems in terms of we need a robust supply chain, we need capital, we need a really good team to pull off the same things, right? We have the same problems, but I think all of us, at least in the early stage, we are probably a bit late to the party, but doesn't mean you don't have to join the party. So we probably like Grey Orange was probably the earliest to the party. Grey Orange, you had AutoStore and all these people earliest to the party, which they would have probably been looked at as the rocket companies of today at that particular point, right? But since we are a bit late to the party, I think understanding this balance between how much does my technology have to progress before I get that next round of funding, or before how are you going to justify that this is where I am, right? Because obviously, like I said, an ideal thing for an investor to say that, okay, we have really revolutionized robotics would be that if we had solved the battery problem and done the same picking with drones, right, then it would have been like, yeah, you're going to be more faster, you're going to be like, just the speed of drones is going to be higher, you can easily deploy a fleet, all of the problems, a lot of the problems that we face today in our robots get solved. But do we want to solve that? No. So I think a balance of resource allocation. So these are the 4 pillars that we always keep seeing, and internally this is something we try to follow. We tell our team as well, like the independent teams working on projects, if at all they feel any kind of friction within the organization, it is because one of these pillars are failing. Like we have either overestimated timelines, we have either there are lesser people working on the problem, we have not deployed enough capital in the problem, or we don't have good enough technology to solve the problem. So if one of these 4 pillars are failing, what we realized with our fundraising journey so far has been that we have tried to make sure that all of these pillars are at 40%, 40%, 40%, and not really letting one of them fail. And hopefully when we can say that Accio is at a position where we can sustain ourselves is when it will all hit 100%, right? So now the truth is that, yeah, our technology is probably not going to be as good as Amazon Robotics, not going to be as good as Boston Dynamics. No, our team, we are not going to have the resources to probably get globally the best of talents, or doing the best of research in terms of robotics, or doing the best like the people that are probably the best salesmen in the world to deploy the robots, right? So that is where people is going to come in. Capital, you know how much each of our sensors cost, you know how much each of our actuators are going to cost, you know how much shipping those cost, you know how much the lead times affect us. So sometimes there are situations where just because of a 4-week lead time for a sensor, that is 1 month of burn because of that sensor. So you're losing 1 month of burn so it's not just the sensor cost, it is the burn of your that month also getting lost because your product timeline is getting delayed, right? So then that is lost, and time, like I said, so we are always in this constant we go back to the drawing board and see which pillar is falling, right? And this is like some exercise I think we keep doing, and right now as we are expanding the team, it's become even more necessary for us to do, because okay, a new person is coming in, they're going to come up with different expectations, and how these pillars are going to keep getting balanced, right? So this is one common thing that is always there in all our presentations in terms of how do we balance these 4, because any one being underwatered or overwatered is like just going to crumble and going to have a lot of problems within the organization. Yeah. Isn't that the output of what the exercise is? No, I think so. So it somewhere becomes a circle, because let's say the initial technology when we started off, if I'm talking about, if I start off saying that I want to build autonomous underwater vehicles, and if I don't have the capital to build that, and if I don't have the people to build that, we definitely wouldn't have had the time to build that, because capital and time are going to be related. Then there's no point of trying to build that technology, right? So setting the right milestone for the technology. Now when I look at it from a perspective of investor, when I'm giving them a picture correlating all of these 4, it also makes sense in terms of, so people ask this question, right? Why can't probably an Adverb do what you're doing right now? Why can't probably a Grey Orange do what you're doing right now? The simple answer is this, I'm not saying they can't. It's probably, considering how much R&D we have to put in and how much effort is gone in, I'd probably give them 12 to 14 to 18 months for any competitor to come up and do this. Now, if they are going to be doing it in that span of time, then our automatic answer is that is the time that we need to gain the leverage of deploying these solutions faster and get the distribution. Because when you correlate it to the fact that Exotech, who already has a mature solution, has still not probably deployed in all the warehouses across the world, it kind of ties up that Accio is not going to fail because of the existence of Exotech or AutoStore or all the other players, right? So it kind of gives them that confidence. So the baseline is set that, yeah, we are not really breaking all the trends in the industry at this point. We aim to do that in the future. We are gaining leverage for that. So this is our baseline for that at this particular point, right? And yeah, and yeah, understanding where the strength, like I said, like that has been like a common. Hello, yeah. So understanding where the strength of the founders, like that's been like a common thing that we keep going back to. So we have this concept of, I mean, yeah, probably a good book for all of us to read. So there is this book called Organizational Physics, which talks about this very beautifully. I don't know if some of you have already read it. What it says is, So what the book primarily talks about is, we've kind of like every person in the organization has like particular strengths, and that has really helped us in like increasing, I would say, the surface area for luck, because not identifying a person who's probably good at operations and giving him something that is work of innovation is probably going to backfire, right? And so attaching a tag to every person. Now when we attach it to, so there are 4 concepts basically: PSINU, so producer, stabilizer, innovator, unifier. You guys like read the book for like deeper context. But so as an organization, if we need to balance all 4 of these, but I think that kind of pans out for at an organization level, that is based on a time period, and at a people level, it is based on that particular like instant of time. So at organization, what I mean is you want to balance the producing, the innovation, the unifying, and the stabilizing over probably a 3-4 year time frame. So if you take an early stage startup, if you are going to sit on day 1 and try to focus on processes, which is a stabilizing factor of the organization, probably going to fail, because by the time you set up process, where is the product, what are you building? Maybe you set up process and then you feel the product doesn't work at all because the market has rejected it completely. So I think understanding that kind of gave us the just the confidence or the comfort that, yeah, we are not solving all problems for everyone. We're not the best in the world. We are not the people that are saying that we are disrupting market right now, but we want to gain leverage to be able to disrupt that market in the future, and that is clear. And how we are doing it is, this is the physics behind it. We have solved for innovation first. We've gotten that. We've been scrappy about it. We've done it with like, okay, so if I take a competitor in the US, even right now, someone who's trying to do order picking, they're probably going to raise $5 million at a seed stage and try to do all of this. But we are like, no, we've gotten to this point by being scrappy at a 300K fundraise. And from here, think about what leverage we can gain if we have the right team and the right people working on our problem statements. So that kind of, I think, understanding. So as founders, yeah, we are clear that, yeah, these are the skill sets we bring. We don't bring the stabilizing aspect of the organization, which is because we don't have the experience. So how do we get people from outside to help us bring that experience, which I think all of this kind of increased our, I think, surface area for luck, right? So yeah, majorly these have been, we'll go to the next, I think we're done, right? Yeah. We'll basically coming from luck. Now the important thing is, again, yeah, part of the luck is also getting the responses from investors and trying to really pitch to them. Like first thing is, yeah, pitching to them. So I think one important thing there was, I don't think we need to go to all the eyeballs. We need to go to the right eyeballs, and that really helped us because I think what we had done initially itself, we had a very clear split for investors in terms of check size, portfolio, geography, and fund size. Now, why check size is we wanted to target investors that have the potential of check size for our pre-series A and our series A, because if they want to follow on, or if they want to really, maybe they don't want to invest now, they want to invest later. So it was people that had an average check size in our pre-series A, series A. Then in terms of the existing portfolio, are there complementary portfolios for us? Are there potential customers in their portfolio? Because if there are, then they understand the space, because their founders have probably been, ideally, there are a lot of the warehousing companies that are coming up right now. So investors that had them as portfolios, right? So then they already probably understand the issues from the founder firsthand, who's going to be our customer, and it's easy to convince them at that particular point, right? Then definitely deep tech, do you have the this thing to be patient in terms of building out this whole business, that okay, we're not going to see the scale of a SaaS business or a fintech business when we start up. We are going to have to take that time out, build that product. If we don't set up the right supply chain, we might not have the proper quality checks to be able to deploy our robots properly. If the robots are not deployed properly or with the wrong products, then we are going to have to spend money on fixing those, sending the team there. So someone who's patient for us to set up all of these things, right? So that, and then fund size, definitely. So fund size kind of also shows you, I think, the appetite of the investor in terms of how they are looking at. I think fund size is more, gives you that same product, same thing of I think overlaps with check size to an extent, because it gives you an understanding of can they potentially come in your next round follow on, because it's obviously what at least data or information I've got from a lot of the other, say, Series A plus startups is you want most of your existing investors or VCs specifically to follow on in the next rounds, right? So that was one thing. But I think out of all this, one really important category of people that I'm probably not addressing is our angel investors and mentors, right? As people that probably didn't have the amount of experience like I'd mentioned initially, or mentioned multiple times, the thing, one really important turning point or pivotal role was a lot of our mentors who had. So we had chosen mentors in a way where we had identified what are the skills we lacked. So we didn't want mentors who are going to come in at an early stage and tell us these are the processes that you have to put into the organization to build out hardware. We wanted mentors who are going to tell us how do you deal with maybe HR problems, how do you deal with market related problems. If you're going to a trade show, how do you set up a booth so that you're not wasting money? There will be those small hacks that probably help you maximize your trade show expense, right? How do you really interact with the system integrator? How do you so all of these things that we have no clue about is what we were looking for in our say, and we were really I think fortunate, again lucky, to have a lot of those right people who could also bring in contacts in terms of investors, who could bring in contacts in terms of customers, who could be potential partners for the solutions we are building out right now and co-develop solutions with us, right? Majority, I think, again, as an early stage startup, majority vendors are also probably not as interested working with you. But now when you're having a mentor or a person like this associated with you and recommending this vendor to work with you, that makes your life a little easier, right? You don't have to sell to your vendor who you anyway have to give money to. You have to sell to him as well. It probably like doesn't make a lot of sense with your time, right? So that I think really helped us at that stage. And yeah, one thing we really had to resist the temptation for at this point. We had gotten a lead investor for the round very early on, and we had a lot of investors, or not a lot, a few investors who were who just wanted to come in because we had a lead investor, but who probably didn't understand our product as well as we would like to, or would be the guys who are probably going to ask us for a monthly recurring revenue 2 months down the line, which is not going to exist in our company in the near, like, immediate future, right? So someone who's able to understand this, right? So we had to say no to a few checks on that front. And then some people who I think, who were probably able to, who, even angels for that matter, who probably are just coming in because, okay, there's a big round happening, there is things up. So being very picky about the kind of investors we wanted on board, because to an extent we were very clear that, okay, one thing that one of our mentors or like our investors keep saying is that, the short term problems are always going to be there in terms of the firefighting, but the more you're able to I think think about the more I think you're able to think about long term. So I think, the more we're able to really zoom out and think about long term is how, let's say, mature the company becomes and how we also grow as founders. Because I think, again, 2020, 2021 was a huge loop where both me and Tuhin were probably in a huge firefighting zone where we were like, oh, we need to get revenue. We're building mobile robots. The competition is high, blah, 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 and all of that. And but really being able to zoom out gave us a lot of perspective. Now, people that are able to tell us that, I think, add a lot of value. That, okay, today, if this is I think when for most of us, especially in India, there is this notion that if it's an investor, we're answerable to them. But we've been fortunate enough to have probably investors who are ready to put that arm around our shoulder and be like, this is not probably as bad as you think it is. This is probably how you can solve this problem, and give us the time in spite of their busy schedules to do that. I think so. They have also, in terms of interaction with investors in general, that has been a very important piece. So even in this round, we had made sure we had gotten a lot of investors who add value, even though it was a bigger round. And maybe our initial, when we had sent out like to probably a lot of these angel networks and all that, we were like, minimum check size is probably going to be about 30 to 40 lakhs. But there were these specific investors who were like, who we knew are going to add value, and if they want to come in at a smaller check size, it's completely fine, right? So we were trying to really balance those things out as well. So Yeah, and I think other thing, like I said, when we all go into the mindset of we have to please the investor, I think we then go into a mindset of having to find out ways to fit answers into the questions that they are asking. We were like that way. We were very clear. We never try to answer the problem of how are we very different, or can a bigger company come and build. We are different because yeah, we are. If you talk, we are different in a way where we are improving our current user or customers warehousing solution and making their productivity multifold and giving them a faster ROI. That is how we are better, and that is how we are different. Now, if you come and ask that, yeah, can an Amazon Robotics come and build the tech? Yes, they can build the tech. There is no, I'm not going to be foolish about that and say that no, I have this small navigation stack that really helps me, catapult few things. I think that doesn't really as much as even maybe an investor might buy it, might not buy it, but that might if you think about like say 3 months down the line, right? We've probably sold that navigation stack to them, and because of that, they're probably expecting that your revenue is going to be multifold in comparison to your competitor because of the navigation stack. And when the navigation stack probably isn't as robust as you think, or it doesn't exist 6 months down the line, that is anyway going to be a question from the investor. So there is like no point of like trying to really be like, oh, this investor has these. So this is one thing we used to do uh, really well in college. What we trying to fit into, like, so when we used to give our initial pitches for the grants that we had applied to for our braille device and all that, we used to do this really well, that we know that okay, we are applying for a biotechnology based grant. How do we fit the solution into a biotechnology based problem statement? So we were like kind of experts at that, and we knew that that's not something that we want to do when we're trying to like build this out. And we wanted to be like very upfront and honest about the fact that yeah, this is where this is where we're looking at. We might face these problems, and considering our long term plans, if you feel like this is something you would like to work through with us, and we've told them, like, there are places we've told them directly that we need your help to figure it out. If we know that the investor is really good with finances and we're probably struggling with some part of our MIs, we've told them, yeah, that's when we need your help to figure this out. Like, yeah, that's the value that you're also going to add, right? So I think that was one thing. And one thing that really helped us out again after last thing was, how is our funds going to be utilized post a fundraise? So that is also one thing that we used to do really well before, was we had a lot of random numbers that used to go in. Like 2019, we used to be like, okay, we're applying for a grant of like 25 lakhs. We should be like, okay, 25 lakhs is split into these verticals, and how it's going to split, we don't know. What components we are ordering, we don't know. But I think it was just a gut based thing. But this round, one thing that I think we really tried to do was, because we also had a lot of clarity about where we are headed, we had our bill of materials. We knew how much inventory we want to hold. We knew what kind of capital that inventory is going to require. We knew that okay, if I invest X amount in R&D, we had done enough research to come to a point where this X amount is going to get the product this big. It might not be accurate, but at least thinking about it really gave us a lot of clarity that, oh, 1 year later I might have these problems. And then when we are talking to the customer investor, there was more, we felt, I think there was more conviction on our part to explain our problem statement, or explain why this technology approach, or explain that this is why the team has to be this big. So people are asking, why do you want senior team members to come in so early, right? Why do you want people to be like, yeah, this is what we lack. This is where the product has to get to. If you want to change these two goals, okay, then we'll alter this. But if this goal is not changing and you want us to achieve these goals, then this is what is needed, we feel. If there's another perspective, we're ready to listen to it, and that's how we looked at it, right? So thinking from first principles that okay, these are the 10 technology use cases we want to build out. This is how it's going. If we want to go to these geographies, this is how much inventory we'll have to go. This is how much lead time it's going to be. So trying to see as much as far in the future as possible. I don't think we're ever going to be accurate about it, but at least it gave us clarity that financing our robots is going to be a problem 2 years down the line, because the moment we maybe have to do 100 deployments, then cash flows are going to be very tricky. So we would have never thought about it if we didn't go through this process. Like, we would have been like, abhi to I need payroll next month, just give me the check, right? That's all that is running in most of our heads. So I think so that also gave us like a lot of clarity. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I've already extended my time quite a bit, but yeah, yes, we'll can discuss probably. I'm sure a lot of other people have perspectives. Yeah. Yeah, so we can probably, if anything specific that we can discuss, or anyone has like any alternating views or experiences, I think we can probably ponder over that. But
Questions here. What is the most trickiest part? Is it the tech or like just finding the thing about how things happen in the industry?
Uh, I think right now it is finding how things happen in the industry because tech I think is something that you'll find a lot of answers for. You might just solve it by getting one better sensor might solve your tech. But I think seeing how the industry works, building an organization, forecasting, like most of it, the problem has been like looking into the future has been the biggest problem at this point. So I think that's been tricky. But yeah, when we started off, like the question is very relevant because when we started off with that, tech is the biggest problem. We're like, oh, tech solve करेंगे तो people want to buy the product. What's the problem? So, but yeah, now we're realizing very recent realization, 6-8 month realization. But yeah.
Pranav, one question. You have Saurabh here from the Zoom meeting. You've basically now this is like roughly the third product that you guys are doing. In a way, you have pivoted to the
existing
third product.
industries are already doing, right? Okay, considering that you matched a base and moving forward, the sales projections, how are you going to justify towards a positive cash flow?
Yeah. So. I think so. Was the question audible to people like online?
Not entirely. Can you repeat the question?
You can. Yeah, you can repeat the question.
You want me to repeat? Okay. Okay, thanks. What I was saying is, since you touched the point of projection, I also wanted to get a little deeper into that and understand because we are talking about competing with some giants who are sitting 7 seas across, right? And you mentioned that, okay, we have a base comparison. Let's say, okay, we know that they have deployed so and so number of robots. Now, moving forward, let's say when you're talking to your investors, how are you going to break that number? And let's say in the next 3-4 years, to potentially show a positive cash flow moving forward and potentially even exceeding them, you never know, right?
Yeah. So I think based on we have to find that answer. But right now, so like I said, it's just based on very logical assumptions or calculations at this particular point. We know that. So again, I'll connect it to the concept of entropy. Like if a system is probably like increasing, like if the temperature of a system is rising, you want to add values to entropy is increasing. You add some external energy to cool it down. When you're trying to add that external energy, we just need to figure out what that energy is. If we want to match that, it's either going to be people, it's going to be having enough capital to hold inventory, it's going to be having good technology, which again correlates to people and capability of like time to build all of that. So the answer to investors has been that, like, see, based on that. So if you see, there is a time when 4 years down the line, our projections become really aggressive. The reason they become aggressive is that technology would have developed to a point where we'll be able to do at least 7 deployments in a month with the same team. Like a team of 3 engineers being able to do 7 deployments in a month just because the technology has progressed that much. Now, then I just have to parallelly increase my deployment team to be able to do 7 into that many deployments in a month, and I can scale, right? So then you are showing that then we also had that product is going to be at this level. Product is going to have, let's say product is maybe using computer vision at that point, because of which there is no we don't have to put markers on the floor, or we don't have to do so much customization on the rack. So all of that kind of, I think, adds value. Increasing verticals also. But right now, because we wanted to show focus, we didn't have that as our projection. We did not have because this is a market we haven't understood. But we've told them 2 years only, if we understand this market, we might expand more if the same technology can be applicable. But right now, our current projections don't hold for any other parallel verticals other than what we currently have. Nothing parallel, like nothing in terms of we'll be doing material handling, we'll be doing something else. Yeah, outdoor navigation, nothing of that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Pranav, just one question, because you've pivoted through like a couple of products, and this is in a way your third product iteration. So how did you? I mean, you obviously still don't know whether you have PMS, because you have a hypothesis and you have to prove the PMS. How did you convince the investors during your pivots that these pivots were worthwhile? And also, right now, how did you derive confidence that this is the right product that will get to PMS?
Yeah, sir. So I think one thing that we had, so our major Pivot. So for every pivot, there was we were very clear that the pivot didn't happen because of uh, a drastic misconception in something that we had taken. So for example, when we started building AMRs, we had some assumptions, which is that the market is crowded. We had some assumptions that the technology is complicated to build. We had some assumptions that it is going to sell difficult. It is going to be difficult to sell. But only thing that we learned was the amount of customization is going to be needed. So none of our base assumptions were really flawed. Even right now, that holds good, right? Like if you talk about building a general mobile robot platform that can move any kind of material or any kind of application, those assumptions still hold good. So that way, I think investors also got that confidence that in our current way of approaching the problem, right? None of our previous assumptions are still invalidated. They're existing. It's just that we find this problem more pressing or more useful to solve in terms of the scale that we want to achieve as an organization. So that I think helped us. Now that is if you ask me, like, yeah, in terms of PMF right now is, so some of our initial deployments we actually saw how, okay, users metrics is improving, right? So then, and we have initial signs is that we have enough customers who are probably willing to pay for the solution. We know that globally there is a market that exists. So I think if you ask me, like, very honestly, yeah, we don't have like an 100% answer that, yeah, PMF, we are confident that this is going to get to PMF, but we know that this is what we want to build for the next 1 year with these assumptions, like these baseline considerations, that the market is huge, the technology is something that is going to be difficult for our competitors to catch up to, but they can catch up to. The solution itself adds significant value to our customer. The price points work in terms of how our BOM costs are currently. So in between we had done a small bridge round which had only helped us answer all of these things in terms of how much the technology is going to cost. So I think understanding all that, talking to enough customers, so we've easily spoken to almost all the major warehousing players in India to understand how they're looking at it. We've been talking to players abroad over the last 3-4 months to understand how they are looking at it. So as of now, we have very good tailwinds on that front. We have very good, let's say, momentum that the technology is going to be validated. So that is the hope for PMF. And I think, yeah, as of things stand right now, what we also feel is from the technology, there are sprouts so we are at a line from the core product standpoint that even if, say, the solution itself doesn't work, a few tweaks will help us match maybe our existing competitor. Then we just have to sell better than them, and we can still maybe be a decent enough company that's probably not targeting the growth that we are right now projected to. So right now, I think we have de-risked that way as well because of the kind of technology that we have. We can go back to maybe saying that, okay, we want to build out an AMR for just the order picking application, and we're not going to focus on the 3D robot because there's enough market validation and we ourselves have deployed robots there. So I think these are the ways we kind of de-risked that answer for our investor on how would we validate PMF.
Cool, thanks.
Just one question here. So you're not stopping any of those earlier products, right? I'm assuming you're adding more product lines. No. So why would you consider it a pivot? I mean, that's my question.
No, we are stopping those product lines. So we are not doing any of whatever we were doing in 2020, 2021, we have not been doing any of that. We only have the picking solutions. So we have both those product lines. This is for assisted picking and automated picking. So assisted picking is where a person to goods solution and a goods to person solution. So before we had like a general material handling for like point A to point B motion, like we had deployed in manufacturing, like we were moving, there was one deployment where we were moving fabric, there was one, so we were doing things like that, so that whole product lineup in terms of how that worked is like completely not in the picture anymore. Yeah. Assisted picking, and in terms of, if I talk more about our projections, the next couple of years we are done with that as well. We're only focusing on the automated picking at that particular point because of the potential scale we see in that. Yeah.
Why a couple of years?
It's just that, again, I think it's just about the PMF answer. It's just that we can take that call now as well, but we know we're having deployments for that now and we have revenue coming in. When that has the PMF, then we can take that call that we'll stop. Maybe we'll find that in the next 6 months and we'll be like, yeah, we're done with assisted picking. But yeah, that is the primary thing. Just being confident that where we are at is going to generate revenue. Yeah.
Hey Pranav, this is Mohan.
Everyone. Sorry, I'll just add on to that because Hi, Arti here from Control One. Let me just add on to the question because this is something I wanted to ask earlier as well. So on the competition and competitors, right? So for example, you were mentioning that you're not going to fool yourself or the investor saying that, hey, you know what, I'm no Amazon Robotics. Can they do this? Yes, they can, right? So how do you sort of not about giving confidence to investors, but more so from a point of conviction that, hey, guess what, I am the best at what I'm doing right now, or what I will do probably 2 or 3 years in this space for this problem via my approach. Second, I'm sure you're talking about competitors with respect to placing yourself against probably the pool of fish, right? Just like how you gave a grid of the kind of VCs that you approach based on fund size, check sizes, complementary skill set and all of that. How do you place competitors? Just to know what worked for you, what did not work for you in the past.
So I think first question in terms of how do you gain the confidence of investors. So our initial thought process was we just thought about how would we recruit. So if say I'm getting a mechanical engineer on board, now if that mechanical engineer comes and tells me that I have skills in all of these softwares, I have not done any tests. He just tells me that I have skills in these softwares. I have designed these things. He got it from there, from online, whatever it is. He tells me all of these things, and after that I recruit him, and I know that he doesn't have any of these things. And now the way I would be feeling is probably a lot more. I've wasted my time. I wasted probably 1 month of payroll in learning about this guy and then firing him. All of these things have become. But on the contrary, we would have probably wanted a fresher who has probably just the minimal experience, who understands good mechanical engineering and has the basics, and says that I'm not good at these softwares, because he's at least trainable at that particular point, right? So we just thought about it from the reverse, that what is if we were to be a VC, both of us are not coming from the pedigree of running, scaling and building huge businesses. So if that is the case, why go and say that I have all my answers solved out and I'm perfect, in case that I am not, because I'm not deployed, I can't really say that my assumption about the customer is right or wrong, how good my technology is right or wrong, because I'm not built enough robots to say that. Now if all of these things are there, and if I'm going and telling them that I don't have a PhD in robotics and I've not spent 15 years there, but still my robot is the best, I feel like that is more counterproductive, because even the person who might potentially I think the moment you say this answer, you're losing every kind of investor. I'm sure we have lost a lot of investors who didn't anyway invest because of these answers, that we are probably, Amazon is probably going to disrupt us in 2 years if they want to and all that. But we just felt, again, surface area, increasing our chances of luck would have been being honest about it, that we don't have the answer right now. In which case, investor could have at least felt that I can at least help these guys with finding these market answers, or connect them with these people in this network whom I don't know, and they'll find those market answers. In terms of technology, they'll figure it out if there's capital and the right team on board. So we just gave them, this was the both sides. But I'm sure we lost a few as well. I think that our baseline was to accept that we're going to lose a few and we're going to win a few. I think, yeah. So competition in our space specifically is placed on type of warehouse, throughputs, number of which place of the whole supply chain does that warehouse fall in. So if you look at, let's say, a lot of the bigger players, they fall into very specific categories as well, and they focus. So first there is split in terms of solution wise. In G2P itself, okay, there is shuttle system, there is your butler kind of system, then there is your R kind of system, then you have auto store kind of system, which is doing. So in goods to person itself, there are these things. So that is one divide. Then after that, we have in terms of kind of warehouse. So if you look at auto store, it's a very low throughput solution, but a high storage density, which adds value to some customers, not all customers. Then if you look at G2P solutions, the throughputs are lower, but then in terms of cost area, you don't need to make a lot of changes to the warehouse and all that. You get a better ROI, and it's perfect for huge warehouses. So we had kind of categorized our competitors also in this way. So it's not like any company that's doing picking is our competitor. How are they doing picking? Why are they doing picking that way? Because what we didn't, and what I think a lot of robotics companies at this point don't add value, don't identify, is we are too caught up in how good our robot is that we don't think about how the execution happens. Now it is not at all easy. Simple example I tell you. I think more so what I've heard of, like, say, if you look at our robot, right, it is capable of probably an application like sorting as well. It is probably capable of simple material movement that if I'm, so investors ask us this as well, like, do you want to, now you're carrying 50 kg payload, will you carry 110 payload? No, we won't carry 110 payload. So we're capable of sorting as well. But why will we not do sorting? Because building out that whole deployment layer is a huge challenge, and that if we try to build that out, then we can't get the scale. So that's why we have our parallel product as well, which is the Accio OS, which is kind of how we are picturing it, is that operating system for a warehouse having our thing. It's interfacing with their any kind of picking, already existing picking, like QR scanners, tablets, monitors, whatever they have. How do we interface with all that? Now, when I'm trying to build an end-to-end comprehensive solution, it's not easy for any of the bigger players also to come and say that, hey, I'm going to deploy in this way without figuring out how the customer's value chain works. I have to integrate with the WMS. It's not just the robots, right? So when I look at the whole product packaged, it is not that easy for, let's say, another customer to come and another customer in a completely different space to come and say that I'm going to do picking now without having the whole software layer behind it. So there is, like, of course, intelligence in terms of how do you restack the whole inventory in such a way that, let's say, a particular thing is being ordered from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and you want them as close to the pick station as possible so that your throughputs are higher. So that whole restacking algorithm. So there is definitely a SaaS platform of sorts that is adding value to that. Now when we look at how just a isolated WMS company or a SaaS, any WUS company, any kind of SaaS company adds so much value, we are essentially, when we are in warehouse robotics, we are trying to build that as well, because you can't otherwise offer a solution. No one is just going to buy the robot. So when you look at it in that way, it's going to be like extremely complicated for them to change the way they are doing things. This is like, we've spoken to like a lot of the other bigger players as well, and that's when we understood that why companies want to focus. Like, if you look at a company like Locus, they have so many robots deployed. If they want, they can do a huger, bigger, higher payload. But what they went out do is they went and acquired Vector to be able to do that, right? They acquired, forgot the name of the company, but Waypoint. Yeah, they acquired Waypoint to be able to do that. They did not go and say that I can already do AMR, so I will go and build my own omnidirectional AMR. They had to, so that it took us like some time to kind of understand how this works. We still haven't understood completely, but our current hypothesis is that, yeah, there are definitely two other competitors who directly have the same offerings that we have right now. But if you talk about like another company coming and competitor coming and building it out, this whole value chain, that's where a lot of the customer experience aspect, like, we probably will have to beat them there. Like, we'll beat them in terms of how well we know our customer, that if, so there are things like, so in all our sales cycles, if you're doing B2B, there is going to be an influencer, there is going to be a buyer, there's going to be a user, right? So when all of this is different, you want to add value to all of them. Now, there is going to be analytics platforms there. How do you exactly say that a CEO of a big 3PL, how can he understand how data is flowing through all of his warehouses where our robots are running? So all of these layers are not easy to build. Like, then it's like, yeah, SaaS companies practically can't exist. And I think we hadn't comprehended the difficulty of this. So we also used to feel like, oh, if I made this robot, why can't another robot company come and build this? But I think that whole integration is far more complicated than even I have understood till today. I'm still understanding it, but this is the intuition at this point.
So you've always been placing it as a 70% hardware plus 30%.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, there is enough and more, because otherwise the money is not coming in. Like, if the software layer is not there, there is no money. So then the product really needs that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Wrap up probably in that case. Yeah. Thanks everyone who attended online, and yeah, thank you for all of you for dropping by. It's been probably a long ride for most of you. Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks to Pranav for the wonderful session. Yeah, it was very helpful. Yeah, thanks all for coming. I hope this is helpful for everyone. Thanks, bye.